Okay. Hey. So Beelzebub has been busy, has he not? Oh my God. I know it's been a minute since I've been here, but I wanted to come on super quickly and get you caught up with all the craziness that's been going on, particularly as it relates to all of the attacks. Once again, all of the attacks on Black people in the midst of all the other craziness that's happening in this administration that clearly we had nothing to do with because, they purged us. Okay. And so now when they mess up, they can't blame nobody but themselves. So they just lie. But beyond that, that's not what I'm on here to talk about. I'm on here to talk about all of the latest happenings with DEI and all seriousness and other things that we know are specifically targeting Black people in this administration and what that means for you, and how that need not stop you. Okay. So the very first thing I want to talk about here is there was a brand new court ruling that came down. Did not get a whole lot of attention, but I wanted to share. There was a new court ruling that came down that rolled back the attacks against DEI. So this was a court ruling in which Trump lost, more like the U.S., right? However, it's limited. Okay. Whenever I think about all that's happening in the courts around the DEI illegal, and I will go ahead and say that, illegal executive orders that he signed on day one, I hear in my mind Aaliyah's song Back and Forth. Y'all remember that? Back and forth, because that's what it feels like, right? Initially, you had a federal court judge out of Maryland that said, hey, this is unconstitutional. It's got to go. Okay. You have to reinstate everything that you tried to roll back. Then after that, you had an appeals court judge in the capital of the Confederacy in Richmond say, no, hold up, wait a minute. Let's reinstate it. Okay, let's reinstate it while we investigate it further. Okay, this will likely end up in the Supreme Court. I know that's where they wanted to go. But what just happened last week was another court came out. This was a district ruling, a federal district court that said, actually, this is illegal, but it did not have the same broad implications of the other ones. Okay, this only specifically focused in one state, I believe. It was brought by the Chicago Women in Trades. Oh, no, it wasn't a state. It had to do with labor issues. So it applied to those specific contracts that were under the Department of Labor, because a specific nonprofit called the Chicago Women in Trades organization sued around that. And this federal district court said, as it relates to all the things having to do with the Department of Labor, you need to reinstate the DEI work there. And so it's not as broad of a positive ruling as that first one was that recently got rolled back. But at least as it relates to the Labor Department, there are a temporary block against Trump's DEI orders as it relates to that specific institution. It won't be a favorable bipartisan vote if it reaches that. Well, absolutely not. Here is my concern. This was the whole plan, right? They have stacked the court with people on the far right, and he understands that executive orders don't really have, though they have sway, they're not as permanent as laws are. So as soon as the next president gets in, they can just write another executive order to nullify his executive order. He's done that with other presidents, right? And other presidents behind him can do that to him. And so his biggest ability to have permanence to what he's doing in terms of all of these attacks is to get it up to the Supreme Court and have them rule in his favor, because now there's legal precedent, and that would make it much more permanent than the executive order. So yes, this is not looking good for that. Okay. We also know over in the past last week, actually, University of Michigan was particularly egregious in that they not only bowed to the anti-DEI pressure from this administration, they literally ripped away merit-based scholarships from Black students while they were sitting in their classrooms. They literally ripped them away while they were sitting in class. So those students understood merit-based scholarships that they had received were being stripped away in that moment. Absolutely atrocious. And that's another reason why, honestly, you guys, we have to be able to fund our own institutions, fund our own liberation, be able to provide our own support to our students. we have got to grow our economic power. And a big part of that is growing ultra successful businesses. This is why I am going to sing this song until the dogs come home, because it is so critical. Everything is being ripped away right now. And I'm of two minds about this, because on the one hand, I definitely understand, and I kind of agree with the whole focus of, all the big protests that's going on April 5th. We're getting the message that Black people will sit this one out because we've been in all these other things and put our bodies on the line, and they still acted a fool and voted for this fool. So do it yourself. However, it is just plain gut wrenching to me to watch so many things that we fought for many, many years be ripped apart under this administration and not really pushed back. In that same vein, let's talk about what he's doing to Smithsonian. And specifically, I'm thinking about the Smithsonian Museum of African American History. I mean, that museum, let's just first say, it took years and years and years and years for it to be built in the first place. Then once it was finally open, it became the most popular museum at the Smithsonian, period. It became, and not only in terms of all of the Smithsonian museums, but it became the most popular museum in the world. People were traveling from all over the world to come to that museum. And now this fool wants to sit here and in essence, rip away, completely tear it to shreds, because he wants to, this is part of their whole agenda, to eliminate history, the accurate telling of history, and erase our history. And it started at the state level. Now it's risen all the way up to the Smithsonian museums, including the African American Museum of African American, the Smithsonian Museum of African American History. It is just absolutely disgusting. But listen, you guys, that's not all. That's not all. It's so much I have to share with you guys, because there's so many things that have been happening in the last few days. He also had the nerve to order French companies to comply with American DEI laws. Okay. Trump had the nerve to order or attempt to order French companies to comply with American DEI laws. So he wanted to make sure that they weren't doing anything to be able to increase diversity in their own companies. To the French people's credits, they fought back and was like, who the hell you think you are? What? You can't tell us what to do with our companies. But this particular story, you all, this one really, really, really upset me, because, in terms of me working with my clients over the years and seeing the writing on the wall in terms of what was happening with DEI, this was one of my go-to strategies. Expand your scope. America is just one small box in the international context, in the global economy. Look broadly. And honestly, this is still going to be my suggestion to you. There are opportunities outside of this country that you can and should explore. And being an African American in other countries actually has more benefits than being an African American here. I'm just going to be true. Okay. Actually has more. When I say actually has more benefits, I mean, in many instances, you will be treated better. Just period. Okay. And there's a lot to that. I'm not going to go right into it super deeply, but just know, think broad. Think broad when you're talking about business opportunities. America is just one small box in the game of nations. And as things are going in this country, I would argue that opportunities will be rising even more in other places than it will be rising here in the future. So think broad with regards to your business acquisition strategies, because the world is big. This is just one country. Think internationally as well, right? And then the other thing, oh, thank you. You live in Vietnam? Okay, Professor Frankie, absolutely. One other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, now this doesn't have to do with well, I guess it kind of does, maybe. I don't know. It does not overtly deal with DEI, but here's what I will say. So we know that tens of thousands of federal workers have already been fired under this administration. There was a lawsuit that came out last week that specifically said that was put together by people who have been fired, and they specifically alleged that they were chosen to be fired, and specifically chosen to be fired because they weren't white and male. Okay. It seems as if they were especially firing people that were Black. They were especially firing women. They were especially firing other people of color. And they seem to be more likely to allow white men to keep their jobs, and they're being sued about that. So I kind of wanted to come and give you this broad sort of overview about what's going on right now and what has been happening over the course of the last couple of weeks, because as you can see, they are not letting up. They are not letting up. They are doing everything possible to make life that much more difficult for Black people. As I'm arguing, and as I've been arguing here for months now, it's about a restructuring of society. This is just not anything that is about specific policy. This is about a broader goal, societal restructuring. That said, I have to say, we need to think about what is the response. How do we fight back? It seems like they are trying to find the right button to push. Well, I don't think that they're trying to find the one right button to push. I think they're trying to push all the buttons. This is a comprehensive, multifaceted attack. And that's part of their war strategy. Part of the war strategy is chaos. Part of the war strategy is doing a lot of things at the same time. Part of the war strategy is broad scale destruction. So you don't even know what to do with one thing because they're going and doing something, they're attacking in another flank. The whole idea is to bring it all down at once. And they are really looking to reorder society. Here is what I do know, however. What I do know is that there is, for us to be able to mount a substantial attack, we need to understand few things. Number one, there are still opportunities out there in specific spaces when you know where to look. Okay? Absolutely. So we definitely know that opportunities still exist. I did a post last week and I shared about a client of mine who at the beginning of the year, honestly, she was a little freaked out. To put it lightly, she was a little freaked out. She had been a federal contractor. It was not all that she did, but it was a significant part of the revenue that her business was able to bring in every year. Part of what she did was DEI training. It was not all that she did, but it was a significant part of what she did. And so at the very beginning of the year, not only did she get all of her federal contracts pulled because she had some that were still in place or some that had been awarded around DEI and they weren't going to fund it, obviously. But in addition to that, she was told that because she had done work in that space in the past, she was completely, I hate to use this term, but blackballed from getting any future work from the federal government at all, at least under this administration. Like she was in essence told, you will never get any more work here as long as we're here. Like that's it. You are on the list to not get any future federal contracts. And so you can imagine that if that is a big part of your business, that becomes very alarming. So what happened? So we had to really look at a few things to say, okay, that's what they're doing. Now we need to think, how do we recalibrate? How do we re-strategize? How do we reorganize? What do we do next to make sure that you are bringing in new money, new contracts, in order to make up for what you just lost over there? So we looked at how to do that. We looked at where to target now. We looked at her network to figure out what opportunities may be around there that she hadn't tapped previously that she needs to tap now. We really start to think more broadly about what else can she do. And when we did all of that, we were able to move forward here now a few months into the new year, right here towards the end of the first quarter. She's at a space where she now is so full. She's at capacity and she still has more opportunities coming her way, more opportunities than she can imagine. And so that she can handle, honestly. And so she's looking at ways in which she can collaborate with other people and have them take the lead so that she can just, pull back, right? She does not have the capacity to lead all the projects that she now has the opportunity to take advantage of. I say all that to say that there is still opportunity out here when you know where to look, when you know how to position yourself, when you know how to leverage your network or how to properly build those relationships that will provide these opportunities for you in this moment. Like all of that is absolutely critical. And it's especially critical now. If you just take a little bit of what I just showed you, which is just the latest of the barrage of attacks that we have seen since the beginning of the year, specifically aimed at Black businesses. Let's just be real. It's specifically aimed to undermine the success of Black businesses. I want you to understand they are going for the jugular. They are going for broke. They are going for your destruction. And the best way for you to fight back is just to make the decision that I'm not going to sit here and allow them to do this to me. I'm going to figure out what I need to do in order to rise, in order to elevate, in order to not just survive in this moment, but actually figure out, like my client did, how can I scale in this moment? How can I grow in this moment? How can I seek out and find new opportunities? How can I maybe pivot into new spaces? How do I do that? Right? And that's why I'm so excited, you all, to be able to put together for you guys a brand new training. I have to say, this year I put together a lot of new trainings, have I not? I have, because this has been an unusual year. I started out the year with the evolution revolution, and we talked about that. Okay. And that focuses a lot on the need to be able to be more visible and grow your monetizable network. Then from there, I went to innovation, right? And we talked about how you need to innovate in this era. But tonight, and this new training is all about elevation, okay? From revolution to innovation, now to elevation. And this is about, if you have a business that you know, okay, you have put many years into building this business. You've achieved success in this business. You may have taken a hit under what's happening right now, but you refuse to go away. In fact, you're looking to rise even higher. Mission elevation is for you. If you are someone who knows that, hey, I might need to pivot into a new space. I know that I'm taking a big chunk of what I used to do in this particular space is no longer even there. It's not even viable anymore. Maybe I need to pivot. Well, guess what? One of the things that we'll be focusing on during Mission Elevation is exactly how to pivot. Okay. So you will want to be in this space for that. If you're someone that's saying, hey, I want to learn how to scale, I want to learn how to grow, even in this time of chaos, then you need to join me for Mission Elevation, because we'll be talking about that, scaling under fire. How do you do that? And I'll be sort of laying out what I call my elevation principles, right? How do you elevate even in a time of crisis? I said before that to me, this moment is unique. It is not like anything that we've seen in history, but at the same time, it kind of reminds me of the uncertainty, the panic, the fear, that took hold in the entrepreneurial community. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. I appreciate that. When the pandemic happened and people did not know what to do, they did not know how to respond. They pulled back. They didn't move forward. And a lot of businesses went under. But for those of us who saw the opportunity in the eye of that chaos, we went full in. We went to the wall, and guess what? We rose. And that's what happened to me. That's what I was able to do during the pandemic, making my first 7 figures in 8 months. I'll be talking about my elevation principles as part of this training to be able to help you understand, how do you rise in this moment of chaos, right? All of that and more we'll be talking about in Mission Critical Elevation. All of my trainings are completely complimentary. It's 5 days and 5 days of substance. You're going to leave there with your game plan for being able to not just sort of put through this moment. Okay. You're going to leave there with your game plan to rise in this moment. Whatever that looks like for you. If it looks like you need to elevate, if it looks like you need to scale, if it looks like you need to pivot, we're going to be talking about all of that and more during Mission Critical Elevation. Another element of it that I'm super excited about that I want to share with you is that when you sign up for Mission Critical Elevation, you will soon be hearing from one of my team members who's going to have a one-on-one session with you, because we really want to be able to help you tease out which one is probably going to be your best path. Do you need to completely pivot? Do you need to just maybe expand your offer suite? Because we'll be talking about that there too. Do you need to maybe adjust some things to figure out how you need to scale? Like, what is your best next move in this time? That's where you're going to receive some one-on-one help from my team to help you figure out exactly the answer to that question. What is the best next move for you right now in order for you to elevate? Is it pivoting? Is it offer suite expansion or tweaking? Is it rising in some other way? Like what does that look like? Is it scaling? All of that you're going to get complimentary when you join me for Mission Critical Elevation. All you have to do is grab your seat by going to missioncriticalelevation.com. That's missioncriticalelevation.com. On Instagram, you guys can go there too, or you can go right to my bio and click the link there. We start off a week from tomorrow, April 7th, when we kick it off with 5 days of training specifically on helping you elevate. If you know you've built a business of substance and you refuse, like absolutely refuse to let this fool take it out, instead, you want to say, how can I rise even higher? Then you need to join me for that training. With that said, I certainly hope that this has been helpful for you all. I hope you got a little bit of a nugget out of what I said today. I'll probably come back on here tomorrow with some more, some other trainings or some other information to share with you, more specific around some of the things that we'll be talking about during that training. But before I did that, I wanted to give you a context of what's happening right now. Because listen, we are still getting hit, barraged from every angle by this administration. And if you're anything like me, you know that I refuse, and you likely refuse, to let them take you out. All right. We need to band together to figure out what to do next. And this is part of why I'm doing what I'm doing with all these brand new trainings this year. This most recent one, I am super excited about. You joined? Awesome. I can't wait to see you there for Mission Critical. Oh, you just joined this live. Sorry. Mission Critical Elevation. With that said, you guys, I look forward to seeing you next week, but definitely go ahead, grab your spot now. That gives you plenty of time to have your one-on-one session before we kick off next week for this latest and greatest training about rising in this moment of chaos. With that said, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys later. Take care, everybody. Bye. Bye, y'all. Bye, bye, bye. Great seeing you.